welcome everyone to this episode of Working Wonders. I'm Siobhan, your host for the SCRIP-J vlog series, where we will chat with leading persons of interest as they delve into both their personal and professional lives, leaving with us interesting nuggets which we hope will inspire and motivate you to make positive changes in your lives as well as in the communities where you reside. Today, we will be chatting with Stacey-Ann Pi Osoria, Managing Director at PODS Marketing Mix Ltd. So Stacey-Ann, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Siobhan.
And the first question I have to ask, what does PODS stand for?
Simply, it wasn't any big idea, but actually just putting all of my initials together backwards. So you have Pi Osoria, then you have Dabra, and then you have my first name, Stacey.
Okay, enlightening. So tell me, what has the journey been like for you as an entrepreneur?
I think when you talk to just about every entrepreneur, you can say that it has been exciting, it has been depressing, it has been devastating, but it has been exhilarating because you go through so many ups and downs, troughs and lows and highs that's all part of the journey that builds your character. But once you're cut out for it and once that's what you're meant to do, then you'll take it as it comes.
Any specific experiences, doesn't just have to be professionally, maybe even personally, that you have undergone that has affected you on this path to becoming managing director of PODS?
I think I've had a lot of life experiences. When I look back now, I think my entire journey prepared me for being in this place at this present time. I mean, starting from personally, I was born without knowing my dad. And so immediately, and not coming from an affluent home, you learned your survival skills and your level of independence sort of like kicked in almost immediately. So I remember from the tender age of 12, I used to work on a Saturday in a vet clinic, washing down dog kennels and assisting the vet with surgeries, just to make a little extra $50 to buy maybe a fancy pen that I wanted to use in school that my mom couldn't give to me. So from a very early level, early stage in life, I had to be very independent and find my way. Throughout school, it was in my secondary school days at Holy Name Convent where I didn't know it and I didn't see it, but a lot of my leadership skills came out, so much so that I was head girl in my time. A lot of teachers saw lots of things in me that I didn't see in myself. And even though I had not pursued the business subjects, economics and so forth, one of the teachers, I remember precisely in fundraising that we used to do as a class around bazaar time, I would normally be the one to spearhead it, get people together, get the girls together, bring in pizza to sell, manage the money. And she used to watch me and say, "Miss Dabro, why are you not in my economics class?" So I'm like, "Miss, what are you talking about? I'm going to fly a plane. I don't need your economics class." And she said, "Mark my words, in years to come, you'll be running a business somewhere, someday, and you'll remember my words." So those are some of the things etched in my mind. And then I hadn't pursued a first degree. And so I worked after school. I worked a number of jobs in different places, in administration to wearing a peach jumper on an air-conditioned factory line, to NGO. So I worked across several areas until I settled for 14 years in the medical field. I was a medical rep for 14 years, working my way up through the ladders. But somehow it wasn't my fit. I began to get uncomfortable, so it wasn't my fit. And I knew I had to do something of my own, but I just did not know what. I didn't have finances. Then, lo and behold, in 2005, Tropical Storm Emily was headed for our Twin Island state. And I was working in Woodbrook at the time, and the Prime Minister then evacuated everybody from Port of Spain at the very last minute. And that led to everybody being in deadlock traffic on Ryson Road for over 2 hours. This was back in 2005, so you're talking about 14 years ago. The phone lines were jammed. My two kids were in different locations. I could not reach them. My husband was in another location, no form of contact. And that experience was the most impactful and the most profound one that led me to my journey in emergency management. Because I sat in my car and I cried and I cried and I cried because I was like, I am so ignorant of the fact of preparedness, and so is my country. And so it hit me like a ton of bricks for some reason. Um, After that experience, and the country started to began flooding maybe 6 inches of water, less than a foot of water, and this was back in 2005. I stumbled across an inflatable sandbag, a self-inflatable sandbag without sand that contained a special resin that inflates upon contact with water. My entrepreneurial spirit kicked in. I saw tremendous opportunity for that product. And so even though I was working my other job, I made a fluke call to both, was Nima Trinidad and Nima Tobago. Made the call to Nima Trinidad, didn't get any traction there, but Mr. Owen Sandy, who was the director of Nima and Tobago, I just called him, I introduced myself, I explained to him what I had, and his question to me was, how soon can you get on a flight and bring that bag for me? And I did that the Saturday morning, met Mr. Sandy, and that was the start of a very beautiful relationship that I still hold today with. It's now TEMA, the Tobago Emergency Management Agency. Owen Sandy is like a brother to me today, who has encouraged me so much to continue my path and my journey in emergency management, because we saw the need for such a company where even though we are not hit every year, we don't have any practical experience, we haven't had a serious event to wake us up, that there was some kind of expertise coming together locally that would provide emergency management products and services along that nature. So, and the rest was history. After that, it was the Ministry of Local Government set up 14 disaster management units within each municipality. And as they were born, I grew with them. I walked side by side with them. I grew. And one thing just led to the next. So my product stream expanded, my service stream expanded, and I can safely say that I am the only full service emergency management consultancy company on the island of Trinidad and Tobago, maybe even in the region. You have a few consultants who would do bits and pieces, but we can do a full 360. So
Now, I know you mentioned that you would have had to overcome many obstacles as any entrepreneur, but specifically as a female entrepreneur, has there been anything that stood out that was extra difficult for you to overcome?
being a female entrepreneur, it was never intimidating. In fact, I tend to have better relationships with males than with females. Because I'm very down to earth, I'm very practical. I think I'm very human oriented. So my levels of service and the seriousness I take in the business, my ethical values, my moral values, my reputation are the pillars that have led me to earn the respect in the business, whether female or not. But I have had no real challenges, I would say, as a female entrepreneur. I think because of the industries I worked into, I was in the construction industry. As I said, I wanted to be a pilot. In the medical field, I dealt with doctors. So primarily, I worked in industries that were male dominated. So I guess I was already in my comfort zone, so to speak. However, the most difficult thing was to have the courage to come out, and also being able to find that balance of working for someone full time, but yet trying to develop your passion on the side. So being torn, having to make the brave step of giving something up for something else that could have been much better for me in my life. Not financially immediately, but that gives me intrinsic intrinsic feelings that make me feel a better person and make me feel rewarded and contented, and those other feelings. So those are important things for me in finding life balance. The most critical time in my life where I had reached breaking point was actually through my personal experience of a 12-year marriage being dissolved, a son migrating, pursuing my master's all at the same time, just buying property, so managing finances, and having all of the financial, emotional, physical, and all the other areas surrounding that, and being able to prop myself up.
That seems almost superhuman if you ask me, as you know, as a single mother and going through all of this work and academia.
It was not easy. It was my breaking point. And I've met a lot of other good people in my life who have that similar experience. But when you're born to be an entrepreneur, you're born. There's nothing you can do to suppress it, to prevent it, you just go. You just go and you find the will, and it calls on every single cell of your body to perform. And you just wake up every day to that fight, and you fight your fight no matter what.
And is there any specific mantra or, saying that you tell yourself daily before you, go on your regular course of duties?
I would try to just reflect on myself a little bit every morning to say, okay, this is what I would like to achieve today. I used to be, this is what I have to achieve over a year. But I've learned that, yes, you have to have a long-term vision, but it starts with an everyday setting objectives and accomplishing that. So when I finally made the decision to leave my very well-paying medical job with a car, with a cell phone allowance, with all the perks, great salary, to stay home and push my business as a result of that personal trauma, and to be there for my 3 kids who also were going through that trauma with me. And I decided to focus on the business. I started taking those small steps, and I started building upon that. And the last 3 years, this is the longest, because I've left jobs and tried it, and then it didn't work, and I've had to look back for work again, going backward and forward. But this time, because I think I was a little more focused and a little more, I would say, resilient. Resilient is the word. That I set the small objectives, achieved them, and I continued building.
Well, I like that actually. Not just long-term goals, but it's important to maintain short-term goals as well.
Most important, you have to be happy.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you have that happiness, other things you can give up, other things you can sacrifice, other things, but at the end of the day, it's what it gives you inside. The outside will be taken care of after. Yeah.
I agree 100%. Now tell me something. So we know that PODS specializes in emergency management, right? So can you delve into that a little more, just focusing on the problem areas that your products and services aim to resolve?
We have quite a few, but I'll just focus mainly on 2 for today. And that is our line of flood protection. So I'd mentioned back in 2005 where I brought in the first inflatable sandless sandbag, which took off very well in the market, especially with the first response agencies. Then Trinidad, we started experiencing more and more high-level velocity flooding events. Waters moved from 6 inches to a foot to 2 feet, and it started getting higher and higher with global warming and climate change. So then I knew I needed to expand the portfolio and start to look for more hardcore flood protection. Was introduced to a company called Pressray, which is a US company. They're located in the outskirts of New York. They have a huge manufacturing facility, which I visited, and they manufacture US certified flood barrier systems, both for single doorways and for much wider entrances. The beauty about their products too is because of their huge testing plant, they're into watertight containment. So when I visited the facility and I saw how they test and how they certify and the robustness of the protection, I knew that was the right product for the market. Because I had examined a few, working with the company as well. I saw how they innovated and how they always improved the portfolio. I was impressed with that. So I came on stream with was door dam at the time, yellow and black flood barriers, which you see, I would say, at Lockjack. I have outfitted at a Lockjack. Those products have been upgraded now to more aluminum and stainless steel for weather resistance. And so we carry for single doorways, or you can interlock flood barriers for multiple doorways, or you can now get stackable fast logs, which are 6-inch flood logs, aluminum, that build up so you can go higher, up to 5, 6, 7 feet, and you can go wider entrances, so carports, basements, driveways, main entrances, they more suit that. So my barrier systems have been on the market since 2008. We were the first ones to come into the market again. We've always been the leaders in whatever we have done. So now we are finding more and more need for those type of robust systems because the level of waters that we are experiencing now. What's more important is the seals that they bring that lock off the entrance. It's extremely watertight. So I've had barriers for years on Sackville Street and Saddle Road in Maraval and Valsine South, which would flood every single year. And I've had very, very good results with those barriers. So that's one pain point. The other pain point is that's more private, residential, and private sector, because we've been doing a lot of plants, Point Lisa's industrial estate, more company-oriented applications, more residences. And so on the state side of things, because I established my place with the Ministry of Local Government, now Rural Development and Local Government, as I said before, I started growing with them as the DMUs, the disaster management units, were established and began to grow. Not only did I start to sell them product to store in their warehouses in the event that they had to give out, or let's say shelter supplies, cots to put in shelters, identified shelters, or meals ready to eat, different products, but I also saw that there was an extremely huge training gap that existed, because we really have not had any significant event where we have had to respond for a number of years. And so the training gap was huge. And so having gone to a number of international disaster management conferences, I've started building out my networks, both for product and for service consultancy. And so we decided to run our first course, I think it was back in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, 2012. We decided to run something called the Emergency Operations Center course, which is a FEMA designed program. And we delivered this to a number of state agencies, local government, health, fire, police, a number of state agencies who hold emergency support functions in our national response framework. And in that training, although it was well received, there was something even more critical that was absolutely missing. And it was the ability to manage and control any form of incident, from a small to a large scale. So even though you have an emergency operations center with people coming together to manage, there was that platform missing to actually manage and control. And that's called the Incident Command System, our National Incident Management System, which was created and implemented by FEMA in the US. It came on stream there when, in Katrina, they realized that their national response system lacked a number of things. It lacked the ability to coordinate and manage in a standardized way. It lacked common terminology. It lacked a way of communicating in the most effective way. And it just lacked synergy. And so there are a number of weaknesses in the system, and that's where they created the Incident Command System. And so our preferred national incident management system is ICS, the Incident Command System. So what it means to have first response agencies and people within the system train in ICS is that if the country should have an incident that goes beyond one local jurisdictional level, like that is contained within one region, let's say the city of Port of Spain, Port of Spain can manage under the ICS system, and it would lead to a better response. And therefore, the citizens stand to benefit if our first response agencies can manage and coordinate better. But what if we have an incident that expands or goes beyond one jurisdiction? We now have 2 or 3, which is what is happening now with the flooding. You have now over 5 or 6 jurisdictions who have to not only activate and take care of the citizens or their communities under their municipality, but they also need to share resources that are always at a minimum. Because we are a small island developing state, we have to share resources. We need to learn to do that more effectively. ICS can do that. We will be able to operate under one, instead of fire coming in and doing something, police coming in and doing something, local government coming in and operating in different ways, and in some cases in silos. When everybody comes together now in one room to manage an incident, there's conflict. And that prevents us from being able to respond efficiently and effectively so that it impacts the lives of our citizens in a much better way. So that's what ICS creates. It creates so that platform, that management tool, that system and process that brings everything into synergy, a well-coordinated platform that allows our first response agencies to come together and manage that incident in the best possible way. So those are the 2 biggest pain points that I think PODS is working tirelessly to address, especially with the state. And we've run so much training for not only first response agencies, but also councillors, mayors, chairmen. Most recently, within the last week, we were contracted by local government again. They are setting up their in-house emergency operations center. So not only did we train in ICS for their staff, who now understand to an extent their roles and responsibilities and how to bring everything together, but also too, we were asked to deliver a customized training to the CEOs of all the municipal corporations. And with that training, which I was extremely happy about, is to be able to get 9 decision-making people of these regions in one room, being able to understand and be educated what this training can do for them. So they had a more hands-on approach to a software called WebUC, which is an incident management tool that would allow you to manage your resources, accountable where the money is concerned, because we know in an event lots of millions of dollars are spent. How is it spent? Where is it spent? Where does it go? How does the reimbursement go? Why are contractors not paid on time? Why do we not have approved vendors and money goes missing? Duplication of payments. So it's a number of things that the software addresses, and it can also be utilized within the regional corporations to manage their day-to-day operations as well. So it was a sort of a twofold. So they understood the value of ICS, they understood their role as a CEO, what role do they play when the ICS system kicks in, and they understand how they can better be more accountable and manage the resources, both human and financial, whenever an event occurs. And it's a platform that it's accessible through the ODPM. So it's a more of a, again, stakeholders coming together to improve the system, and let's see how we can progress.
Okay. It seems very thorough across the board, covering all aspects, well, as much as in terms of training and products. At this point, I want to mention the flooding last year, October 2018, one of the worst, if I'm not mistaken. And my question is, how has this experience affected or influenced PODS as an emergency management company in terms of your future outlook for products and services, both locally and maybe even regionally?
I would say in terms of the Greenville event that because of the extent of floodwaters, the height of those floodwaters, that people are now understanding the value of not just flood protection, but reliable flood protection. I'm not saying that my flood protection systems, if you have 8 feet of water, 13 feet of water in your house, like what we saw in Greenville with people on their roofs, would a flood protection system prevent that? And I'd say no, definitely not. But people are understanding the value of having been prepared, more prepared, and also in choosing the flood protection that so we have a little more competition on the market that they understand the differences and what makes a good flood protection system and what they need to look at. So I think the whole realm of flood protection is definitely huge scope, and so we continue a lot more work in the corporate sector in protecting critical infrastructure like plants and huge facilities. In terms of my vision for pods has always been to be the Caribbean's hub for emergency management products and services. And so earlier this year, I had my first stint in Antigua where the Ministry of Tourism needed some assistance in creating a manual for their stakeholders for the tourism sector. And so we were asked to come up there to facilitate the stakeholder engagement and help them to put together the components of this manual for implementation in the island of Antigua and Barbuda. So I think I have not deliberately marketed myself outside of Trinidad and Tobago because I just feel there's so much work to be done at home and I'm a one-woman show. So it's very difficult and not being able to, I don't want to spread myself too thin. And I think I have a real purpose here that I've worked so hard for that I'm now seeing some kind of traction, that my interest is more so, I guess, for passion for my country too. And because I'm concerned for my kids, that in 5-10 years, in another 10 or 15 years, with the effects of climate change and global warming, where would my kids be? And so I take that very seriously. And so beyond pods, I have also incorporated an NGO called the Emergency Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, where we will be the voice of emergency management in the country for advocacy in, let's say, improvements in the disaster management legislation, which has not been done for maybe 18 years, things of that nature. We will lobby for more business continuity planning among the private sector. So a group of subject matter experts who all share the same passion, we came together and we were incorporated in the middle of last year. We are now in our strategic planning and hope to launch maybe by the end of this year. But so I'm trying to give back at the same time, and I'm trying to create another mechanism for further progress that can support our national response system.
Okay. So the focus right now
is local, is local.
But the potential is there in the future.
It definitely is. Okay. I think the potential is, the sky's the limit. It is. Okay. It is. So I think the training is all very beneficial, but the next step within Trinidad and Tobago, which is my focus, is not only to deliver training, because training is one component of preparedness, right, but also to see us shift from that reactive culture to more of a proactive one. And so normally every year something happens, we respond, something happens, we respond. But we need to shift that paradigm and now focus on mitigation and preparedness, because the figures show, the data suggests that every US dollar you spend on mitigation and preparedness, you stand to save 60-fold than if you were to just concentrate on response activities. So we save lots of money if we plan properly, if we develop plans if we start developing plans, and not only just developing plans that sit down on a shelf, but we take it beyond that and we bring those plans out and we test them and we practice them, and we need to get practical.
So the trainings that your company offers, it's possible to have follow-up trainings for the same companies in terms of refreshers.
Sure, we could do refreshers. We could also, based on where the company is at, because, for example, in the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, because of their high level of risk and exposure to chemical events, etc., you find that there are a lot more health and safety requirements and regulations that they need to adhere to, and so they take front. Okay, so they would budget for training, they would look at their plans, they would exercise their plans, they would improve their plans, etc. But beyond that industry, where you have other industries, let's say this one, SCRIP-J's, where they may only think about, okay, if we have a fire, what happens? They need to think more beyond a fire. They need to look at it holistically and say, okay, what are all the things that could possibly affect my business being shut down for one day or for 1 week? And if that happens, can we withstand that impact and look beyond just fire?
Right.
Think about other things. So now we have earthquakes. And so last year, right after the flooding, we had that 7.3 earthquake. What if that crumbled this building? What if this entire facility was impacted? How would that have impacted SCRIP-J? Was their staff ready? Would they be able to come back out to work? The human factor. So it's a number of components that businesses, and because, again, we haven't been adversely impacted in other areas, it's not at the forefront of our mind. And because of the economic situation, they might say, well, we don't have the budget to do it now. It's not important. The government is not telling us we have to do it. So it remains on the back burner. But now it needs to come to the forefront in strategic planning. If you're planning and you're doing your strategy for the next year, make some small steps. Put something in place that will allow your business, your brand, to be taken care of in the event of something other than or bigger than a fire.
Now, before we close off, Stacey-Ann, I have to ask, what would your advice be for the future generation? You know, the young girls and boys who aspire to hold a position such as yours, or even just follow along the path of entrepreneurship?
Well, through my own experience, I could safely say that don't expect that you go to school, you get a degree, and you come outside here and you are given a big position with a big title, with a big salary, and with all the benefits. And two, you always learn from the experience.
Right.
A lot of my affiliates are much older people. And they may not be people who attended the best universities, but they have a wealth of life experience. And that says a lot. You also have to be prepared to get out of the shirt and tie, and be prepared to put on sneakers and socks and elbow grease and hard work and getting on the floor level. Because when you go on that basic level and you begin to interact with the different components of a business, not the people, the systems, you understand. Maybe working your way up from the ground up to the top will give you what you need, the ammunition, to be that better manager or owner of a business. It's through all of my experiences working in administration, working in construction, working as a secretary of an NGO, working on a factory line, all of those different experiences helped to create that package to be able to take on such a venture. So don't just come out thinking you know it all and that you just come out here to make money, but you're coming out with purpose. You're coming out to acquire the experience and the knowledge that is available through older heads, and to be humble. Be humble to be willing to accept criticism, for want of a better word, to improve yourself. Some people come and Stacey, you handle that bad, or you sometimes a little bit too rough around the edges. You need to soften up, So take things in good stride and always be about self-improvement. And I would say definitely that find your passion. Because unless you find that passion, it do seem worthwhile.
Some words of wisdom, Stacey. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And why don't you leave us with, your websites or the social media platforms that people can take a look at your products and services.
Sure, you can visit us at podstt.com. You can also find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Just search for Pods Marketing Mix. And you can also, I will even share my cell number, 680-1464. If you need any advice, if you need flood protection, if you just have a question on preparedness, feel free. We have a cadre of local and foreign expertise, and we feel that we have the right expertise, the right skill, and we're passionate about the business to be able to help you through this whole new industry of emergency management and beyond.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Siobhan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for viewing our SCRIP-J vlog series, Working Wonders. Now, if you found this content to be interesting and of value, feel free to like, comment, and share because we'd love to have your feedback. Look out for our next vlog and stay connected with us via social media or even our website, SCRIP-J.com. You can see the links in our post description. And remember, keep doing the wonderful work that you do. Bye.